Thanks for joining us for this discussion today, Carol. I'm happy to introduce you to our class. Dr. Carol Estabrooks is a Canada Research Chair in Knowledge Translation, a very accomplished, internationally renowned scholar, and she's going to tell us a little bit about her work in knowledge translation and elder care, as well as talk about evidence and qualitative inquiry.
So my name is Kara Strick-McCarroff. I'm an assistant professor here, and it's my privilege to just ask you a few questions about, if you could start by telling us briefly about your program of research, specifically in relation to TREC.
Oh, great. Thanks, Kara. It's a pleasure to be here. And hi to all the students out in the Ethernet. My program's called Translating Research in Elder Care, TREC for short. We do like acronyms. And in a nutshell, it's a pan-Canadian program. It's an integrated knowledge translation and quality improvement program that runs across several provinces in the country. We're most heavily in the West, and we're also in Atlantic Canada now and a little tiny bit up north. And we're really looking to improve quality of care, quality of life, quality of end of life, and quality of work life for the workers, the frontline workers in long-term care settings or nursing homes. We often use nursing homes for short. So that's the nutshell version. We've got about 32 investigators, and we've got about 50 team members, core team members in total.
Wow.
And I think right now we've got 12 trainees. That fluctuates depending on who's bringing what sorts of trainees and when they start and stop. So it's a big team. That's kind of the inner circle, and then there's other circles of involvement. So because it's integrated knowledge translation, it's a FISI, a Partnership for Health System Improvement, partnered, Mode 2, not exactly PAR, but it's just in that field of model of work. We have kind of circles of involvement. So we have regional people and ministries are in the core group, and then we have facility administrators. We have a cohort of 92 right now that we're following longitudinally. Wow. And then we have people, NGOs and federal agencies that are involved with this. We also run off of the longitudinal platform that gives us the system monitoring data, which includes staff and resident data, because in nursing homes they, fortunately for us, collect routine data from residents every 3 months on clinical and functional outcomes. So it provides this really huge resource to work with. And then we collect surveys from facilities, from units, from managers, from regulated workers, nurses, and allies, but in particular from care aides. We focus heavily on care aides because they provide 90% of the care, and they're right at the coalface all the time. So we've got probably 10,000 surveys over 10 years from care aides. A lot of that's workforce and health and well-being data, and we just keep grinding away at it. Lately, we've turned much more, at least among the senior team, of our effort toward working with policymakers and decision makers, trying to exist partially in their world in terms of talking about the value proposition of TREC and the return on investment, because it's a partnership, not just of work, but it's a financial partnership. Yeah. So about half of our money comes from CIHR, and the other half comes from various of our partners. So that's a bigger nutshell. I'll stop and see if you have more questions about it.
So I know that at the very beginning you mentioned PAR, Participatory Action Research. How do you use qualitative methodologies in your work? I know you mentioned about the surveys. What role does it play?
So we've been going 10 years, and how we've tried to incorporate qualitative work has varied.
Yeah.
And we've learned some things in the School of Hard Learning about what doesn't work for us. So in the first 5 years, we tried really strenuously to use qualitative work more in the way I'd been trained in it when I was a master's student with Jan Morris, to really try and do theory development. And we tried to do that through case studies and cross-case comparisons. And it wasn't a good fit for us. There were all kinds of reasons for a big program like ours. We work on a pretty fast cycle, and that kind of qualitative works on a slower cycle. Yeah. It's very hard to hire people with the sufficient expertise to help substantively with analysis. And I don't know any investigator group I can get enough analytic time.
So you have touched on this already, but can you just share about how you believe that qualitative research may be used as evidence, and if so, how?
There's not agreement in the academy about this.
What do you think?
I think qualitative evidence, with the exception of the watershed work. So I think Glazer's work on dying was watershed. It's old now, but I think it's watershed work. And there are other examples. I think they can constitute a form of evidence that's widely used and I wouldn't say generalizable, but widely used because it's about core processes that transcend the setting or the issue. I don't think that most qualitative work meets the standard of generalizability, which is what you need if you're going to turn something into evidence. I think it can augment evidence in a really important way. I'm talking now about effectiveness.
Right.
Because that's where my head is most of the time. Is this strategy effective? Is this intervention effective? But it can make your evidence from your trials and whatever much richer and more important. And I think it's impoverished if you don't have the qualitative. Mm-hmm. Small qualitative studies are a lot like small quantitative studies. Mm-hmm. Unless they're building, you don't get this generalizability thing. Mm-hmm. There are standards, of course, for evidence in the world, a number of them, but people are still consider the gold standard for effectiveness to be the trial. And I think they're right. Not that trials are perfect, they're rife with problems. So I think it's a complex answer.
Can you tell us about what models of knowledge translation that you use in your work?
Yes, the primary approach we use is this integrated knowledge translation. So it's all in partnership. And I didn't used to believe this, but I became a believer. I believe if you're going to want change, and that's really what I think most researchers aspire to, you've got to work with the people who are going to actually make the change. We're not going to make change. And it's harder, and it shouldn't be undertaken glibly by a young assistant professor because it's time consuming. There's an opportunity cost, but you can get on teams where that's done. Yeah. So that's the model. The theoretical models we use Ev Rogers' diffusion of innovation work extensively. And we've got Jim Deering on our team, and we're so fortunate because he's probably the greatest living diffusion scholar. And so he just has changed all kinds of ways we look at spread, if you will, and scale it. We use the parish model a lot, the model that Kitson started out of the UK. It's not a theory, Lord knows, but it's a framework. It's a framing device. Because it's so general, it's really useful to frame both in how you generate hypothesis and how you frame it for a grant and talking to people. And it's really directed us to focus on context, organizational context. It's been the major theme of our work for 10 years. It's frustrating if you want a model or a framework that's got any specificity to it because everything seems to affect everything. Yeah. But, we've done a lot of derivation of hypotheses from it. We've built an instrument to measure context because there wasn't a good one when we started. And it's been extremely useful to us. Some people really don't like it, but we've found it very useful. We use Ian Graham's work a bit, the knowledge to action cycle. I mean, it's not that we use it a bit, it kind of overlays things because it's really a process model. It's not a theoretical model. Carl May in England, sociologist, has got a wonderful, he doesn't have a very good name, normalization process theory, which is an implementation model. It's a KT model, but it's really built purely the way a pure sociologist would from the ground up. And I think it has a lot of utility. So I have a couple students using it for changing things at the front line because it's all about practices. Now the org people call this something else because they were originally sociologists, I think. But that's been very useful, and it's more of a middle range. The parish is a framework. Yeah. NPT is a middle range theory. Diffusion of innovation is a big umbrella theory. It's huge, because Ed Rogers was probably, if not then the second most influential social scientist of his time. So I guess he did what he invented, in terms of diffusion and communication.
In thinking about doctoral students who are beginning their dissertation
Yes.
plans and putting together their ideas towards knowledge translation and integrated knowledge translation, how would you advise them?
Well, they should take, if they haven't already, the KT course that we offer. It's one of our required courses. How would I advise them? I would advise them to learn how to do integrated knowledge translation in the context of safety. By that I mean with teams or investigators who've done it and who know it, and not just go out in your first 2 years and jump into building 13 partnerships and because it takes so much time, and it's not what you need in the early years to build your career and tenure and promotion and everything. But I think it's a really important way to go. I think Ivory Tower works especially for the professions, like that kind of the work that you might do more in sociology. That's very much about knowledge for knowledge's sake. I think that isn't so popular or relevant to the professions anymore. It's important to learn about and learn from with IKT, but there's all kinds of important stuff students should be thinking about basic knowledge translation. They should be thinking strategically about where they put it in the peer-reviewed literature and aiming for the best journal they can, because it'll get read more and it'll get picked up more if it's in good journals. They should be doing presentations, but cautiously, because I see lots of students who are, they've made 20 presentations this year and they've got one publication, and so it takes a while to get that.
That was me
right.
when I was a graduate student, yeah.
And I often tell students to use the presentations as testing grounds for the work they're doing and the paper they're going to write. I had one at GSA in the States last year, and I thought her area was hot, if you will, like important. But she wasn't sure, but she got this massive response at this really big conference, and so she got a tangible idea. Oh yeah, this is a big, important, emerging area.
Thank you for all of your insights.
You're very
that
welcome.
You shared with us. We really appreciate it, and this will be seen by the students in our current course and going forward. So thank you.
Okay, you're very welcome.